Chapter 1. The Empire on the Brink. In the early months of 1917, Russia stood at a precipice. The Empire, once a formidable force, was now crumbling under the weight of war and internal strife. World War I had ravaged the nation. Millions of soldiers lay dead or wounded, and the economy was in tatters. The Russian people, weary and hungry, took to the streets of Petrograd, demanding bread and an end to the war. The Putilov strike of February 18th ignited a series of protests that spread like wildfire across the city. Workers, soldiers, and women marched together, their voices unified in a call for change. Faced with mounting pressure and the defection of his own troops, Tsar Nicholas II abdicated on March 15, 1917, ending over 3 centuries of Romanov rule. The provisional government took power, but it was a fragile entity, incapable of addressing the nation's deep-seated issues. Chapter 2. The Dual Power Struggle. With the fall of the monarchy, Russia found itself in a state of dual authority. The provisional government, led by Alexander Kerensky, sought to establish a liberal democracy. However, it faced immediate challenges. The decision to continue fighting in World War I alienated many, and the government's inability to address land reforms and economic hardship fueled discontent. Meanwhile, the Soviets, councils of workers and soldiers, emerged as powerful bodies representing the people's interests. The Petrograd Soviet, in particular, gained significant influence, challenging the legitimacy of the provisional government. This period of dual power created a volatile political environment with competing factions vying for control. Chapter 3. The Bolshevik Ascendancy. Amidst the chaos, a determined figure emerged, Vladimir Lenin. In April 1917, Lenin returned to Russia from exile, bringing with him a radical vision. His April theses called for all power to the Soviets and the withdrawal from World War I. The Bolsheviks, a faction within the socialist movement, rallied behind him. As the provisional government faltered, the Bolsheviks seized the moment. On October 25th, Julian calendar, November 7th, Gregorian, they launched a coup, storming the Winter Palace in Petrograd. The revolution was swift and largely bloodless, marking the beginning of Soviet rule in Russia. Lenin's leadership and the Bolsheviks' promise of peace, land, and bread resonated with the war-weary and impoverished masses, solidifying their support. Chapter 4. The world reacts. The Bolshevik takeover sent shockwaves around the globe. World War I was already reshaping the international order, and now the world's largest country had embraced communism. Allied powers, including Britain, France, and the United States, viewed the revolution with suspicion and fear. They feared the spread of communist ideology and the loss of a crucial Eastern Front ally. In response, they provided support to anti-Bolshevik forces during the ensuing Russian Civil War. Meanwhile, the Bolsheviks consolidated power, withdrawing from World War I and focusing on internal reforms. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, signed in March 1918, ended Russia's involvement in the war, but ceded significant territory to Germany. This move was controversial, but allowed the Bolsheviks to focus on consolidating their rule within Russia. Chapter 5. The Dawn of a New Era. The revolution's aftermath was profound. The Romanov dynasty was gone, and in its place stood a new socialist state. The Bolsheviks, later known as the Communist Party, embarked on radical reforms. Land was redistributed to peasants and industry was nationalized. The Russian Civil War, 1917 to 1923, ensued, pitting Bolshevik Reds against the anti-Bolshevik Whites. The Reds ultimately triumphed, solidifying Bolshevik control. In 1922, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, was officially established, heralding a new era in Russian and world history. The revolution had not only toppled an empire, but had also introduced a new ideological force that would shape the 20th century.